To Kanu. So joining me now to discuss this changing political environment, if you like, at least in Samburu, is Joy Mudivo and, of course, Michael Agwanda, a governance and political expert, respectively. Michael, let me begin with you. Why is the terrain shifting, or at least so it seems, in this part of the country, and why is Kanu benefiting from it?
You know, it is amazing to Jubilee, and Jubilee has for some times now had a narrative that they needed to have a Jubilee party that was going to be a conglomeration of many other small parties, and for one reason that they wanted to bring the entire country together. But remember that this is something that the country had come from the single-party era when Kanu was there, and it was fought, and the multi-party came into play. Since the multi-party came into play, people had a new breadth of deciding in which party to run to for a position. When Jubilee decided, and I said this before, that the push was so much not about the president, but it was about the deputy president, thinking that it would be a good idea to have one big party with ideologies. What is happening in this country is the parties do not necessarily stand for ideologies. The parties have become vehicles to put people into positions of power, because you go to the villages, all people ask you is whether you could give them an incentive or you could leave something for them, not necessarily what do you stand for. And with the rhetoric that we've seen lately, both in the NASA and also in Jubilee, there's a great fear that when NASA agreed, and that was called when they agreed that we were not going to have party hopping, so Jubilee agreed. Remember, this is the only thing that Jubilee somehow agreed with the opposition on. There will be no jumping of ship. But as time has come up, we realize that there were parties that refused to merge with JP, and as it is today, we are seeing that those are the parties that are benefiting from the fallout from Jubilee. When we look at Kanu has been consistent, really consistent. They've been slow but consistent. They've been getting inroads into the Rift Valley backyard that has elected, Mori's son, who was actually the main guy behind Kanu. And as you can see, that they're not just sitting pretty and saying, well, we just need some few seats here. They're getting into Rift Valley more, and we are seeing them getting out of Rift Valley. What are we seeing in that context? We are seeing a situation where basically you cannot now say that Rift Valley is JP and nobody else can get votes from there. We are now seeing Kanu moving outside and saying we might be a huge force in 2022. If you think that it will just be Jubilee Party perhaps against NASA or whoever the grouping that will be there at that point, Kanu is sending a signal out there. We are here to stay, and we are here to get people to support our votes, and we are going to be a huge party come 2022.
Joy, is Kanu getting a fresh lease on life?
It is, and I think one of the biggest strategic moves that Kanu made recently was when they changed their support for the presidential candidate from NASA to Jubilee, because one of the things that was causing them to remain a stick in the mud in the area where they operate is the fact that they were seen to be aligned to NASA. Remember Nick Salatani's famous Ndani comment. But when now Senator Moi came out and was very strong and categorical that they will be supporting Jubilee, then what Michael is alluding to started happening. The fallout with Jubilee is yet to happen, is yet to unravel, because I think after the nominations there will be even more disintegration of Jubilee as a party as we see it right now. And when that happens, people who perceive themselves to be strong aspirants, but who imagine that they will not be able to have the space to do what they need to do within Jubilee, then we'll be looking for viable alternatives. Now, in the Rift Valley, that would be Chama Cha Mashinani, Isaac Ruto's Chama Cha Mashinani, as well as Kanu. And now the thing with Kanu, unlike CCM, is that Kanu has history. Kanu has longevity. And the fact that President Moi, though retired and frail and old right now, is still a very strong, powerful voice in Rift Valley. And as long as he remains on the scene, whatever he says in Rift Valley carries a lot of weight.
But even what you're saying, Joy, which almost sounds to work contrary to the long-term game of Kanu, perhaps as, again, another election vehicle for a possible Gideon Moi candidature in 2022, to the extent that you have twice at least referred to it as a party in the region in which they operate. You have said, talking about its dominance in the Rift Valley. Going forward, this party will have to assert itself across the country. What are its likely chances?
It's not very likely to have national dominance as it did in its heyday. After 1992, Kanu became something of a dirty word, and that made its popularity around and about the country to wane considerably, such that if you even were a Kanu Life member, you were at pains to try and become something else because it was seen to be quote-unquote a dirty word. But it has remained dominant in Rift Valley because of the Moi factor. Now, as long as Moi Sr. is still alive, Senator Gideon and Philip Moi continue to have a political lifeline. Now, if they're going to go into it in 2022, their best chance would be what Wiper is now with ODM, is looking for a strong partner to remain allied with, which is why I think they made the strategic position to remain aligned with Jubilee Party rather than with NASA.
Is this the one instance in which history maybe is working against a political party, that it isn't that you're going into it with, you know, all this richness, that actually you bring more questions than answers to the table?
Most definitely, because if you think about the tag of Kanu through the years in Kenya's political scene, it is synonymous with oppression, with those dark days of the torture chambers. It is synonymous with stifling of the voice of the people, and such that it took force to get Kanu to get to a place where now President Moi had to concede that multipartyism had to come into place. And that history does work against them. However, when there was the rebirth of new Kanu and new faces coming in, and the muteness that we have seen in the party for the last about decade or so, it has given it a chance for folks to take a second look, which is why I'm thinking now some place like Samburu is a little bit outside the sphere of influence of the Rift Valley and of the Moi legacy, the Moi family.
Right. But
they have been able to make inroads because that is an area where people still remember Kanu with some nostalgia, because there are parts of this country that had a little bit of windfall when Kanu was in power. And in those areas, if you mention Kanu, especially the older generations, they will still remember Kanu with some fondness.
All right, Michael, what would it take if a resurgence of Kanu was to, you know, see such growth countrywide, and to what extent does the leadership of the party have to do with its popularity as well?
You know, I would say this. Kanu is perhaps the only party among all these other parties that are there, other than ODM, that has representation everywhere in this country. And if they wanted to engineer their way of doing things and go back to the ground, you go to the communities and they still find this old was saying, I am Kanu and I will die a Kanu. I mean, they have such strong followings that you can go in every part of this country and find somebody who is ready to sit in and do things on behalf of Kanu. Kanu was very good for their followers, and so Kanu can easily get into a national prominence very, very quickly if they wanted. The only thing they've got to do is to change the face of Kanu and the people that are running Kanu.
Change Gideon Moi?
And Nick Salat.
Yes, and Nick Salat, because these are people who have been there, especially Nick Salat perhaps is overstayed there. He needs to get out. But when they decide...
The first time on this program we're actually castigating a politician for staying in the same political party. I thought we were going to laud that. Well done, Nick Salat. You stand for something.
No, what I'm saying is these are factual. I mean, Nick Salat perhaps needs to go away a little bit, because Nick Salat has been fought by many many Kanu members. Remember, as we sit here pretty and discuss about Kanu is the only party that perhaps had so many investment in terms of offices, in terms of land. What has happened in the last few years is some of these properties have been disposed of underneath Salat. And for him to be there and to be fought by people who are very faithful to the party, who think that is perhaps gaining from all this investment that are now going to drain and are being sold, he needs to move.
But isn't Kanu, you know, when you're talking about getting rid of some of these older personalities, isn't this party very much its owners, perceived owners, being the Moi family? So it becomes difficult to imagine a resurgent Kanu without a Moi in it.
I'm talking about the structure. The structure is there in every part of this country. If they really wanted to have a national dominance, they must get rid of some people, re-strategize. They must be able to have very, very energetic young people behind it, and they must tell people that this is not just Moi family business, but this is a national figure, party that is going to look for governance, to look for a president in future that is going to have people in course, and it's going to have people in Rift Valley and Western Kenya and Nyanza, that this is going to be another formidable party. And I can tell you, it is easy to revamp Kanu to come back. He's already making inroads in Rift Valley, and I agree with Joy very clearly. As long as Moi is still there, Rift Valley is still not going to be pretty, and somebody is not going to say it is JP and it is JP. We have Chama cha Mashinani that is already taking a huge chunk, not really huge comparatively to what Jubilee has over there, but you can see if Kanu takes a bit of it and Chama cha Mashinani takes a bit of it, what is left there for JP is small. And it could be another guy who will come with another force and say, and for your information, NASA also has very faithful followers in that very place. So you can see it's a battleground, and at the end of the day, the votes are going to be divided according to how loyal one is to one party to another. But Kanu can come back.
Right, but Joy, a Kanu without the Mois is like suggesting ODM without ODM. Exactly.
And it's almost unimaginable. And right now, Kanu needs the Moi family to remain in it because, primarily, truth be told, they're the financiers. If you look at the recent numbers that came out with the amount of money raised by candidates, Kanu managed a paltry 62 million compared with Jubilee that raised over 700 million from aspirants. That tells you aspirants have more faith about being elected on a Jubilee ticket rather than they have in being elected on a Kanu ticket. Now, if a party raises 62 million, that's not enough to fund even a presidential campaign, let alone rolling out in the entire country. So it's one of the things that is an indicator. How much money raised is an indicator of how strong a party you are. So with those sort of numbers, therefore, it becomes important to have some deep pockets. And that's why you find that money talks in these political situations. When you look at those direct nominations of ODM last week, when you look at the numbers that we are talking with Jubilee, you can have up to 7 MCAs trying to get one ticket. These tell you something. And for Kanu, without the Moi family right now, it's financial ruin. And so they have to keep the Moi family happy.
You know, are they mutually destructible to the extent that if Gideon Moi was to really make a play for 2022, then he does need, you know, his best option is to run on a Kanu ticket, and that if Kanu was to become a big party, its best bet is to associate with a kind of presidential flag bearer or somebody who's going for top office, and that in all likelihood it would only be Gideon who would conceivably have such a position within the party.
Unfortunately for Gideon, I'm pretty certain no other party would have him as a flag bearer except Kanu. And the reason is very simple. He lacks the charisma that his father had, the national appeal. I mean, till today, people long for those days when President Moi would read his speech during a national office, and then he'd put the script down, and then he goes off script and he does his thing. I mean, that is something very few people are able to recapture that imagination. Like Raila Odinga does it pretty well himself. Uhuru Kenyatta tries. But for Gideon, the few times I've heard him speak, apart from Maktor's funeral where he went off in Kalenjin, and it sounded very fascinating even though I understood none of it, most of the times it would be difficult for him to be a sell as a national candidate. But in Kanu, he has a direct ticket. His best bet would be to do what Uhuru Kenyatta did. Come in, align yourself with people, try once, twice, learn the ropes, see if you can master this thing before you do a big bid on yourself. So I don't see Gideon 2022. It will be a bit foolhardy. But I see him aligning himself with JP, hoping that once Uhuru Kenyatta is out of the picture, maybe some William Ruto time for him to run a little bit more as a running mate, possibly, and then maybe make a play for it in either 2027 or even beyond that. But right now, I don't see Gideon ready to be a national party, a national figure, and much less on a Kanu ticket, which right now is where he's very much pigeonholed. Right,
Michael, if you know, beyond 22, Gideon was to make a play for, you know, top office nationally, would he need to then divorce himself from any emotional attachments to Kanu, you know, and latch onto a bigger party?
As long as Gideon is not moving out of Rift Valley, he will never make the president of this country. There were rumors previously that perhaps, you know, Moi will give it to the son of Kenyatta, and then as soon as the son of Kenyatta, who is Uhuru Kenyatta, is out, he takes it back to Moi, and Gideon will be the best pick for that reason. Well, Gideon is definitely not marketing himself out there. He's not going to the course as these politicians are doing, or as DP is doing. DP has had an interest in 2022 and is going in every corner of this country. Gideon isn't doing that. And so if he thinks that he will be picked on the basis of the votes from Rift Valley and perhaps be a flag bearer on Kanu, that is short-lived in my view, because for you to be a presidential candidate of this country, you must be able to go to every corner, and not only go to every corner, but you must also align yourself to all the political interests therein,
right,
including parties, I mean, it doesn't interact very easily. It's up to, it seems to me like he's, you know, he's just, you know, a guy who's sitting pretty, just minding his own business. He's a senator, that's all, and take care of the family business and play polo. But he's not going out there with
Baki. We're saying that of Musaliam Davadi.
Yes, yes.
You know, now we're saying it of Gideon Moi. Who knows?
Well, Musaliam Davadi at least came out, you know.
He didn't come late.
No, he came late, but he said, well, I don't think I'll sit in Western forever. You know?
And I thank you all for your views this morning. We're going to catch up again, eavesdrop on this meeting that the president is leading, a launch of a public portal, certainly one that he hopes will prove to the public that the administration has been working. Let's listen.
And as a responsible government, we are borrowing for investment in order to